Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I'm live. Is it where's the pop-out thing? Okay, I need the pop-out chat. Okay. Alright, should people decide that they want to talk to me? That's ridiculous. Alright. Okay, everyone who may or may not watch this. Um, I am going to try to build a blaster from scratch, a flywheel blaster, because I've only made one Springer to date, and I'm still working on it. Thanks, Sally. My kids are both awake. I'm both home right now, and I don't know how much time I've got for this, so, I might come back to it. This will certainly be multiple parts. And my audio quality sucks, probably because my computer doesn't have a working audio component to the motherboard, so I'm using a USB thing. I think we lose a lot of quality in the interim. Um, so, I am going to make the no frills assault rifle, although it's going to have tons of frills by the time I'm done, probably. But I want to make something basic, simple, something kind of what is Turk Makto calls it, the new dream rifle, and so I'm gonna make one of those, but not like he would. I'm not nearly as good at that internal stuff. Anyway, that's an intro. So, welcome, Red Roy. Yeah, the people have the Sentinel if you can find one. But you can't. Who can find a Sentinel? I sure can't. I haven't seen one of. Actually, I have one, but it broke. I broke all of my Sentinels. Anyway, so the start here. I'm hoping most people will watch this later because I'm just gonna kind of treat it like I would treat one of my normal videos. So the way that we start, and I'm using Fusion 360. Some basic setup things. I've turned on the origin so we can line things up. I'll try to figure this out. Anybody who has questions, feel free to ask. I'll answer them as best as I can. Uh-huh. And so there's some things that I set up. First, you have to save your thing. Save everything into the same place so that you don't have to, move them around to different projects. So all of mine are just a demo project because that's just where I started saving things. And then, like I said, turn on the origin so you can see the center of everything. The first thing that I do, and I've got it, you can actually change it in the settings, it turns out, I turn off the capture design history. I don't like doing that because then, even though that gives you some really cool tools, it slows down my computer enough and it's made things complicated enough that I don't do that. What? If you're done, that's fine. It's going good. I am good. Like I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I will have to pick up my wife from work and probably continue this on Monday. Anyway, first thing that we do, and I'm not exactly sure where other people are going to find these sorts of things, but that's just how it goes. There are open flywheel project cages that you can get in step format. I've got a nice collection of parts here. Most of them are available in step form, I think, publicly. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by placing in our internals. I want something reasonably powerful, so I'm going to just build right away around a double hurricane cage, which will hit like 170 FPS. And the first thing that I'll do is we have the cage in. I'm going to grab the set pivot and I'm going to grab the center of the feed guide and then I'm going to just drag that to the center of the origin. That way we know any shot, or the whole thing is based off of where the dart is going to fly out, and that's the best way to do it. So when we go to just the full view, this is dead center of where the wheels, when properly put on. Um, so this is where I like to start. I usually place the cage first. The next thing that we will place, I'll get wheels probably eventually, but the next thing that I like to do is the mags. Before I get too far, I have a picture of, it was some concept art that I saw that I wanted to, that I wanted to use for this. I just liked how it looked, so it's like, okay, we'll just use that as a basis. So this is a handy tool to use, is the canvas. So if you're making like a replica, which is what I'm doing here, we'll just grab that and we'll line up the barrel, make it bigger than that. Okay, we will line up the barrel. I actually usually do this with the magazine, so you know, and we'll just kind of place the components here so that we have what we want where we want it. But I wanted to have something here. We'll edit that later if we need to. I'm probably going to just use a full-length mag. I believe this is Captain Slug's 18-round magazine. Which you can find with the Caliburn files. Not entirely sure the best way to... Alex, could you be careful?
No, I can't do that.
Was it Dawn?
That was that thing.
What thing?
That thing.
What thing?
It's a thing that attacked the rock.
The thing that attacked the rocks? Oh, okay. So I'm going to line up, this one has a dart mocked in, so we're going to just use that as our basis for checking. That seems low. I'm going to just go like this. Even though there's a dart in there, mags are kind of hard because the lips kind of change the way it feeds, which is why we have the feed guides on the actual cages, so that this dart that's clearly too high, we can just like kind of drag down, and then it can't go higher than the feed guide. So anyway, I have to check my messages. So we're placing the things. I like to put the mag and the flywheel cage as close as possible, just because then we can have shorter pushers and more reliability, all that. So we're going to butt that up right next to it. And we're like 3/4 of the way there. So the last thing that we need to put in here is some sort of firing system and some switches. So I'm going to put in a solenoid because those are easy. That's interesting. Okay. So again, we're going to set the pivot right to the center of the pushing mechanism, if it'll line up right. There we go. It kind of like latches or clicks onto the center of circles, which is really important to know how to do, but it's kind of like frustrating that it doesn't always work out easily. Yeah, that seems right. It doesn't seem right though. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, we're just gonna do that again. Get it all? I think so. Maybe I did get it. Okay. So now that everything's all centered, and we check the centeredness of things um, using the orthographic view, and just look at it, and if they look all concentric and nice and the same distance, then we should be good. So I'm actually going to save this right now because we have the start of something, and I don't want to lose my progress. So I'm going to look up really quick because I can never remember this. How long a 130 motor is. Let's see. 130 motors are... That's not helping me. Come on. I wanna look at the fucking... Man, Google Images, he's on the shit. Alright, it says, according to this image, that a 130 motor is 38.75 millimeters. So we'll just set that up. Okay. So when I'm extruding and stuff, I'll often... That seems too long. Yes? Oh my gosh. Dom, are you okay? Oh yeah, Ellie? Dom, stop choking yourself, boy. Alright, I'm going to assume that's right. This includes the tabs for length, so that's our full length that we'll have to cover with like a motor cover. Oh my gosh, Ellie, that's amazing. So the list of things, I'm going to actually write it, that we'll need to make this work from here will be a trigger, switches, mag release, and mounting. So now that we've got the basic components all thrown in, we'll want to tweak. I want to take the solenoid and move it a little closer to maximize the push length that we get so that we get the most reliability and feeding. I will probably eventually make this thing set up for my long throw pusher for 2-round burst because I really like that, but I honestly, even though I really like my bullpup, I'm not sure that I love the bullpup configuration. Anyway. So I guess we'll start here with making some shell. So the quickest and easiest way to me to do this is going to be, let's start with like a lower receiver. Ideally, what I want to do here is I want to make this have an upper and lower that can come apart. So I'm going to build with that in mind. Also, we need to have sort of like a stopper for the mag, which means we need to come down. This whole design is clearly bigger than I've got it. As I mentioned, I am going to have to, I'll get back to that. So I did mention this at the start that I might have to adjust my reference or whatever to fit better. we'll just do that. When I'm doing that, I usually like to use the magazine to match the length because then it gives you the same, if maybe larger, proportions. Anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mess with that because I want to, let's see, how far is that? 2 inches, okay. Because I really like the proportions of this design and stuff, or I like the look of it. The proportions aren't necessarily like what I'm after. So I'm just sketching out the whole thing here, and I don't want to go over the tools that I'm using too much here, but essentially I use the line tool a lot, offset gets used often, and a few others. I'm also not going to take this reference to heart as far as ergonomics because I've seen a lot of really cool concept art, and then when you really look at it and you think about it, it would be terribly uncomfortable to use in person. Like, just utterly. Like, a lot of the time in games, they'll make the stock too short. And so, you know, like, you'd choke up on it and be really uncomfortable. I don't want to do anything like that. We'll also see how we can make this thing work for alright, eventually I'm going to have to add some wheels to for sure do these things. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we have a basic shape drawn out that hopefully you can see. I'm going to, after we extrude this, I'm going to make the concept a little lighter. So we have a basic shape that we've got here, and that is sort of our basis. That's our first part. So we go over to here and do new component. We just drag as wide as we want it to be. Usually, we're going to definitely want to cover the solenoid's width so that it can be like mounted internally. So I'm going to click to the edge of that, and it locks to that length automatically. And then I'm going to do some math here. We're going to do 1/8, maybe, whoops. So minus 1/8 more. So we have a whole 1/8 of an inch of total length grabbing the solenoid. That'll be a nice solid wall when printed. And so we have a basic kind of setup here. Just looking at it, this looks too low to me. So what I'm going to do, and I might just keep it this way actually, is I'm going to grab this whole lower of the lower, and I'm going to split it. We're going to split body with these two lines, or not. Okay, we're going to go to T and trim that, and then we're going to split the body because it wants to have a single piece. So this gives us a separate body that we can move independently, and that's what I want because I want to choke this up a little higher so it's sleeker. I'm going to just move this face up higher all the way, and I might keep this as a separate component, both for printability. You can print the handle nice and simple, but also just because it gives people places to change colors and stuff, which is always nice. So I'm gonna, all right, let's take off these things. I want to look at my concept. So it's got this nice like shape up, which I wouldn't think to do, so I want that. I have that a little bit. Let's emphasize it. Let's give it an angle. So a lot of what I do is I kind of feel like it's a little akin to sculpting. We make a big shape and then we kind of trim and cut and modify it down to the shape that we want. And that, you know, so I will start doing a little of that actually, in fact. One of the ways that I'll do that is, so we have this component here, we can grab it, we can extrude and cut the outline of it into the shape, And then to keep it from cutting that part permanently, we just turn it off, and then it's gone. And now we have this spot where it was cut into this body without, any fuss. Then we'll just add some tolerances. We'll just cut off a quarter of a millimeter. Maybe we should go a little higher. Whoops. Minus. Yeah. Oh, wait, I did 0.025. Whoops. So we'll just cut a little around it so that it's got some space. You want to always do that with parts. It's just that is a very particular skill that takes a long time to learn, kind of. So, And also, this is, I think, worth noting. The way that I'm working on this right now is I'm only doing 1/2 the right side of the blaster, and I'm going to keep doing only 1/2 as long as I can, so that by the time I'm ready to mirror the part over, it's as refined and finished as it can be. The longer we wait on that, the kind of better that will turn out, and that's how I like to do things, just because once you mirror it, any changes that you make on one side often have to be made on the other, so you're going out of your way to make changes that are symmetric, when if you just waited to add the other part, the symmetry would be built in. Oh, you know what I forgot we need is a battery. So we will insert that. So with a flywheel blaster, we need the wheels, with all of them, you need propulsion, you need the pusher if it's a flywheel, you need the mag, and you need the trigger. In the case of flywheels, we also need a battery, so we're going to take this mock-up of a 1300 milliamp hour battery box, which means it'll fit inside. We're going to see. Actually, that's way bigger than the battery would be. And I know I've got battery mock-ups that I kind of want to use, but something's better than nothing, right? To Alistair McEwen, Alistair. This is just, I'm making something because I've had a lot of people asking me how to make blasters and how to 3D model and stuff, so I thought I'd go through my process relatively quickly to show kind of the way that I approach these things. And so, wait, that won't work. So this is just new, kind of, I'm doing something really simple and basic to kind of go through the steps. So I haven't decided on where I want the battery. I'll probably want it either here or in the stock back here. If it's in the stock, we can have a big battery, as big as we want. If it's down there, we could have a removable stock, which would be kind of convenient for some people. I know some people like that. That's how they roll. So, I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I'll probably decide on that later. Anyway, I'm just going to leave it where it is for now, because I kind of want to start. I need to get in a few of the other parts. I'm going to go into my stuff, kind of. These mock-ups that I have access to are really nice. But my problem with them is they're a little too nice. And so there we go. So I kind of like to use my own because they're just simple. I should have music or something here. So I'm going to design this. Oh, also, whenever I finish this thing, so here's the problem with the battery here. So I'm probably not going to do that. I don't like battery trays on the side like the Strife, but I'm not 100% ruling out something like that happening here. Or something. Stock batteries are really nice, so that's a very good possibility. So, as I was going to say, this is going to be the kind of blaster that I make, and that means that it's going to be to my standards. I don't like rev triggers and that sort of stuff, so, you know, tough luck. So, you know, oh, oh, welcome. Anyway, what was I getting at? So we'll make a trigger that probably presses two switches in a rotational way. I think I'm going to tentatively place this in the back. The problem, I'd love to place it right where the solenoid is. Oh, that isn't close at all. Where is that? I'd really like to place it where the solenoid is, but that just doesn't always work out, obviously. Any pusher pretty much is going to make that hard unless it's a really low profile one. And we could put the battery down under it, but that's not very convenient for bigger batteries, so. Right now we just need everything mocked up so that we can kind of get it all in its place. Where's that one? I don't want that one. Okay. I guess we need a trigger. We actually need another one of these. But how? Could just put two like this. Alright, so I'm going to make a trigger here. As I mentioned earlier, there's a chance I'm going to throw my geared pusher in here. So if I do decide to do that, it's going to change the nature of this. And that's just going to be how it is. So, alright, yeah. So these guys, I'm going to put them up high in here so that, and make them independent, so that I can build out this trigger mechanism to have like a normally closed, and then I guess I'll even just go simple. We'll do a 3-point rectangle from the center and go like this.
My macaroni.
Sure, I'll take your macaroni, honey.
But someone gets someone's fork.
Well, that's okay.
Can you clean me up?
I will when I'm done here.
Look right here.
Oh. I've kind of found that the sort of maximum length or width of a trigger should be about 0.2 or 0.5 inches. You don't want to go much bigger than that, so, you know. Anyway. some better holding. Dom, what's up? Dom, you want down? You want down? Hey, why? Oh, that is what you were doing. You were messing with my rolls. Boy! Boy, you are! Say hi, Tracy. I know. I think it's time to meet you. Okay? Alright, I had to rescue my boy. Okay. I kind of want, ultimately, I'm going to want this to be able to have probably some kind of, grenade launcher or something on it. So the way that this trigger is going to work is it's going to pivot. And when it starts pivoting, it'll unclick the first one, and then at a full pull, it should hit the second one. And as I can see, toying with the component and its projected movement, this switch in the back is way too high, and is going to have to be both angled and moved down. I want enough travel that I have some time before it hits, but not so much that that the front is coming down too far. Hi, Dom. Where's my lower? Uh-huh. Yes, Dom? So I'm gonna... Dominic. I'm gonna move this one back too, though, because we need a mag release in here in the front as well. So we don't want to just take up all that space with the trigger. So that works. 20 degrees is a pretty good trigger pull. Doesn't feel very long, but gives a lot of control over travel time. I'm going to move this one down a little bit more. Okay. And just real quick, going to rename my components. Because we really don't want to, like, ignore that. Also, we're going to come in here and we're going to measure some things. So this handle part is too wide. 1.8 inches when it's mirrored is going to be way too big. So what we're going to do is cut it back probably about 1/4 of an inch, about to there, so that it's about 1/2 inch. The whole thing, okay. It'll be about 1.25 inches wide when it's mirrored, which is a little bit large, but not terrible. That can always be adjusted, but solid, chunky handle isn't a bad thing. Anyway, so I guess we'll want to do a mag release too. The way that I usually like to do mag releases is just like a nice, simple pivoting thing, like the Raven. Of course, this is going to be impossible to hit with that like choked up body. So what that tells me is that what we really ought to do next is grab all of these components and stick them back. Maybe like half an inch. Every time we do scoot that sort of a thing back, we're making some new problems for ourselves. Because um, we'll be coming back, and that cause problems if, say, someone has a smaller printer, and we need to. Yeah, I know my mic is quiet. I can't do that much about it. Um, as I mentioned at the beginning, my computer doesn't have a good setup for it, so let me see if I can adjust my volume. No, I can't. It's as loud as I can get it on my streaming thing, so I don't know what I did. I didn't do anything. I don't think. Anyway, we'll worry about how to print this later. What did I just do? So the organization of parts is really important, and I'm really bad at it, so I'll try to do better for this. It might have been, although the headphones never left my head, but I did get up to open the door for my dog. So maybe, it was too far away. I don't know. Alrighty. Gotta move that guy again. We could, in theory, actually. Well, maybe that's not a bad idea. Depending on how tall we make the blaster and the size of battery, we could stick it right here above the mag. Let's do it. So one of the things I do eventually hope to talk about on this is like the ergonomics. Because I can already tell looking at this won't be like super comfortable. It won't be terrible, but it won't be amazing either. So I'm going to add a little bit of shape to it. We'll want to round it out, of course, too. So we'll take it, round it out. That's definitely too small. Just looking at it really quickly. I don't know how to measure this. What I'm trying to do here. Just cut a circle out. When you aren't doing timeline, you can just delete faces and things, which is nice. That's not as doable if you keep the timeline on. But then if you keep the timeline on, you can also go back and edit sketches retroactively, and it'll change the extrusions and all that stuff. And that's kind of cool. But, not really something I've played with. It mostly caused me grief. Ugh. Alright, we'll just do a spline here so that I can get the shape that I want. There we go. That, I don't know if that's better. It's probably not. What I'm probably going to do is, I'm actually just going to do all that. The thing that I'll probably do eventually here is go and grab a photo of, like, a rifle that has good ergonomics, like a real one, put that in and copy the profile to an extent. Um, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the real steel firearms industry really knows their shit when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think it's worth taking that into account when doing designs, that, you know, a lot of the problems that we need to solve have already been solved. And there's not really any reason to avoid using their solutions, in my opinion. So what I did just there is I just drew this rectangle and I cut it away while turning off the parts that I didn't want to just delete, so that I could. No, that's not going to be fun. So that we could have a movement or a track for this to move. So pretty simple, but you know, I'm just trying to go over everything here. So I'm also going to bring this all the way up so that we get the full trigger exposed, and then I'm going to draw in a little bit. We could also change the pivot of the trigger. I don't know. It doesn't look like this is going to be a comfortable trigger to pull, so we'll see. Speaking of that, we'll just do that for here too in the front. Turn off the cage. I think this is one of the parts that people have asked me about, like how do you start making shells, kind of, and this is my answer. So we'll just keep dragging this back, and that will cut away. So now we have an opening, like a ledge, kind of. So the cage the motors won't fit yet, but the cage will fit. And I will probably change the cage itself to mount vertically into, like from the top down into the frame itself, because I find that that's really stable, and you know, it makes it so that this entire assembly can be separate and we can have different uppers, or you know, you can field strip it. In this case, you're almost going to have to field strip it because the battery is probably going to be up here. Not 100% sure about that yet. Why is it angled? Oh, gross. Degrees? 5 degrees? No. 5 degrees? 2.9 degrees? 2 degrees? No. Uh-huh. Good job, baby. Good job, Alice. Trying to like figure out the angles of rotated parts is a pain in the butt. Whatever. That's good enough for me. Oops. Now what we need to do is grab the center, if it'll let me, and then put it on the origin. some color. We'll do black and some pink. So the other thing that we're going to need to do here, cut. Okay, we'll just chop that away. So this is totally open now. What I'm probably going to do is at some point I'll probably want to take a long, hard look at this thing for printability. But I'm not going to worry about that too much yet at this point. Because I may or may not keep these two parts chopped up, but I might just merge them too, depending on the printability, because sometimes that will make things easier and sometimes it won't. So, you know, who knows? I had no plans when I started this, so there's, oh god, you know what we need to do? We need a spring for this. I think what we'll probably want to do is some sort of extension spring holding from above on the trigger. Kind of, again, it's a little early to worry about. Well, it's not really too early to worry about that, but it's not my primary concern just yet. I want to kind of like get the bulk of things sort of sorted. Who knows? I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I think what I will do now is maybe. Oops, that's the wrong place to cut. So I'm actually gonna make my Magwell as well. Get it? And I'm gonna do that by cutting the. Why aren't those connected? So I'm gonna cut the bottom of Mag off. I don't know how. Allie, calm down. Alright, I'm gonna have to just do this a couple times, I think, because for some reason these parts aren't like connected. Although, you know, they might actually just be not connected. No, I don't get it. Oh, I see what it is. Sometimes you'll find parts that should be touching and they're not, like that. So I'm just gonna join this, and then we get this big solid shape. I'm going to press O for offset, and we're going to do a chain selection, and we're going to do the whole thing, and we're going to do 0.5 millimeters. That's usually my Magwell tolerance. And we're going to grab this big thing, turn off the mag, and cut. And turn off the cage too, just to be sure. So now we have a Magwell profile. that will probably need to be tested. I have really bad luck with Magwells, and their fit. It's really easy to get them too tight. Um, so we'll want to check that for sure at some point, but not at this point. I mean, that will probably be like a prototyping test. Back to what I actually wanted to do forever ago, which was the mag release. I'm just going to do a nice simple lever like the Raven. So we will put a pivot. We can get to that. We'll do like an 1/8 of an inch pivot. You don't even need to do that. I have had plenty of successful mag releases that are, you know, a filament pin, which is 2 millimeters, which is more like a 1/16 of an inch. So we'll just grab all of our edges that we want to, the faces, I guess, or whatever it is, that we want to make our mag release. We'll do a new component. We'll do, I don't know, I guess an 1/8 of an inch, or not. I mean, we can do this as big as we want. I'll do 0.25. We'll do this as a 1/2 inch wide. Again, these parts, the trigger, the handle, the mag release, all of that, I will almost certainly eventually mirror. I just do everything in half first. And that is a little bit a holdover, like I talked about it earlier, there's a little bit of holdover from when I was doing clamshell designs, but it's also just a really handy way to make sure that everything is set before you get too invested in details and then, you know, making edits and things, you know, that sucks. Do I like what? Yeah, I do. Alright. In theory, that should work just fine. I might eventually look at like the Raven or something later. So let's add some more colors, just because I like to denote things particularly. I always do triggers and buttons and things in orange. I usually do frames in black and like pink or green. I'll do green. Although I'd actually do both of these in black, because I like to have the lowers black and the uppers colorful. That's just a style thing. Before I get too far into this, I do want to do some kind of a chamfer here to see what the minimum width I can squeeze out of this is, because that will almost always dictate the comfort of the blaster and the space that we have to work with. I'm not sure, again, I don't know where I'm going with this, like in terms of aesthetics and stuff, so, you know, I don't know where it's going to go, where it's going to be, but, you know, I guess what I'll do next for fun, because I want some more fun on this, is I'm going to make an upper receiver. I'm not probably going to really go super in depth on the fun features on this. I mean, I called it a no frills rifle for a reason, because, you know, I have a lot of like fun things with slide locks and all that sort of stuff, and I'm not really all that fussed about, you know, that kind of a feature right at this moment. So this concept looks like he's outside. Isn't that crazy? He's outside, Ellie. I don't know. He's outside. I told you. So this concept, I don't know, Ellie. He just is. So this concept looks like it's broken into like many parts in terms of like upper and lower. So we've got, you know, the black lower receiver here. What looks like possibly a shotgun pump grip. I have no idea. And then like this mid section and then an upper. That's kind of like how I did my MHP3. I'll pull up here. We have a lower and a mid and an upper, and I might, maybe we'll go for that. MHR. You know what, I probably will actually. Come on in, Dom. Come on. Bye, Dom. Okay, yeah, let's actually, you know what, let's do that. I want to match the visual style of my MHP3 a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this like front section that like goes over a bolt. We'll see if we add a bolt or not. So before I built a large shape and cut it down. Right now what I'm going to probably do is take this small shape and build it up. But I'm not actually sure exactly where and how I want to do that. For sure, we want this area to be wider, so that we can add like a bevel. We'll just go halfway. Actually, what I really think I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and what we're going to do is we're going to do sort of the, wait, I don't need to do it that low. I'm going to do like kind of a middle section, I think, and so I can get a sense of the way these parts are kind of put together for me. You know, we could probably just add as many stages onto this as we could possibly want. Just add some green. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this part, I'm going to put it here so that we'd have a sort of lower hand guard on the bottom. I also don't want it to be this long, even though I like long, rifle-y type things. I don't want it to be that long. It really doesn't need to be. I want something semi-compactish, I guess. Where did my chat go? There's probably no one watching. Alright, we're going to take this. We're going to chamfer that in because we don't have to worry about motors coming up that high. We do have to worry about the battery if we keep it there, though. I don't want to keep the battery there. What we could do, just cover the battery by going like that. I'm going to bring the whole height up. We'll do that by grabbing all of the faces. Oh, come on. I did not grab a body. Okay, Dom, let me... Let go, Dom. I can't do it if you're touching it. There you go, Dom. No, I only grabbed the face. Okay, well, that might be... I might have to call it a day, guys. I gotta go pick up my wife from work now. She's finally done with her meeting. She can come home. Whoops, no, I didn't want to do this. Alright, so I'm just gonna grab this face and do a new body, or a new component here. That'll be like the front handguard, that we may make swappable with some sort of grenade launcher someday. Let's get my mag back in order too, just to so that we can see everything, where this is going and how it looks, and chop that down, because 18 mags are just too long. Nobody likes them. Well, I don't like them. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let's see. I have not been taking measurements of length and stuff, so right now this is going to be about 3.5 inches tall and 18 inches long plus stock, which will probably be another 12 inches. So we'll probably want to bring the front down even more. If we were doing a full length or a full size cage, which I can, I'll just throw one in just for reference. I should do those actually. So we would bring this bottom part down more, and probably the top up as well. That's usually how it goes. So as we can see, the top wheel would be just barely contained here, and the bottom wheel would need some extra space around the bottom to account for it. That's not a big deal, it's just something to keep in mind. You are welcome. I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully somebody learned a little bit about it, because I really do have a lot of people who ask me how to do this stuff, and I want to be able to, help people with this. I don't see any reason to hide knowledge, to not be open about it. If someone's got the will to do it, they'll find a way anyway. You may as well make it easier for them if they want to. Exactly, for the people. But fuck the people. People suck. Alright, I'm gonna save this. Alright, thanks for watching, guys.